News, where we share our opinion about the news that is important to us. Pumps has been busy at work all last evening and all this morning. Pumps, what do you have for us?
Well, I just don't think we can start the day without addressing the dumpster fire that Donald Trump was yesterday at the National Association of Black Journalists. I mean, it was so cringeworthy and so offensive that I could not believe my eyes. Honest to God, I couldn't believe it.
Of course, I don't live under a rock, and I saw this, and it is alarming how loud the racism is becoming. And I think the big question when Americans see that is, who do you want to be? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be with him who can't understand what it's like to be a person of color in this country and all of the extra defining and hoops and biases that you have to go through? Do you want to be like him and just be a dick about somebody's race? Or are you going to be an empathetic person that says, we all live here together and we need to learn to understand each other?
Absolutely. And so there were so many clips that I could have brought to this segment, but I had to narrow it down. So let's start with his defining what race Kamala Harris is.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So, I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear.
So many things about that. Number one, she's Black. It's like air quotes Black. I mean, I could not believe my ears. But for him to tell her what race she is offensive.
Well, it's offensive. It's insane. It's important to note here how that journalist just taught a master class to all of these journalists all across the country that attempt to normalize and not fact check this psycho, this convicted felon, this racist, and how he completely falls apart. You heard the audience. He doesn't have all of this, the cult there. You know, they're all like incredulous at the stuff that he's saying. And I think he later on, right after that, but it cut, said somebody needs to look into that. Meaning somebody needs to look into her Blackness. This is a guy that started the dog whistle with Barack Obama. This is the guy who back in the 80s was a complete racist. It's in the record all over. Everybody knows the stories that are outside of the cult. And so I saw some journalists last night on corporate news saying, you know, trying to spin this, saying, well, we have to give him credit for showing up. And I'm like, no, I came to my job today and I didn't receive a warm welcome. I just walked in and sat down and we started doing this podcast. You're running for president. A large portion of the population are Black people, and you need to go speak to them. You don't get an award for that. And it's amazing to me how people that we know have tried to say that they're not racist. They've tried so many times to say, oh, I don't see color. And then you see this shit and you're like, you are a racist and you're a racist apologist. And if you have grown up in the white suburbs like you or I have, and you've gone to predominantly white schools, every American that has grown up in that situation knows exactly how racist, not all white people, but a large group of white people are. I've been around it. I've heard it. I've seen it. And it's time for the white people that look like you and me to tell black people, we hear you, we see you. That is unacceptable. That is humiliating. That is embarrassing. And I cannot imagine what your life must be like to navigate a world where you see this man fill up stadiums and say racist shit and everybody claps for him. I am so sorry that you have to live in a country where you're treated like that.
I absolutely agree. And he was so condescending from the jump. I mean, I watched that whole thing, like all 32 minutes, because, they pulled him off the stage. When they started asking about Project 2025, his team completely shut it down.
Well, yeah, they packed his toys up and had him leave because he's a toddler. He's a racist toddler.
Yeah, the black. Well, she's black. I found that to be so gross, but I digress. Moving on to what he said about black jobs.
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job.
It's so crazy. Do you see how incredulous he is and how demeaning his tone is when he says a lot of people in this room are black? He's like, look at where I am in my life. I'm proving that I'm not a racist because I'm sitting, wow, there are so many black people here. It's just unbelievable. First and foremost, the country is not being, quote unquote, invaded. That is a lie. Secondly, the assumption that black jobs are low income, that is inherently a racist statement. Thirdly, if you're so worried about the border, why did you kill a conservative border bill by our nut job senator who's a total right-winger from our state, James Lankford? He killed it because he does better as a person, as a politician, when more people suffer.
Right.
And that is a direct link to the psychopathy and the racist default setting that this guy has. He was in awe and incredulous that there were journalists in the room with him that were black.
At a National Association of Black Journalists.
I mean, it's just unbelievable how bad Republicans are at their job. It is just jaw-dropping. It is as evident as the nose on my face. But so many within the Republican Party behind his back say how much they hate him. And then they're so scared of this cult. They're so terrified of not getting reelected. They don't have a backbone. And the biggest thing that I've had it with right now are people that don't have a moral backbone. And that is on massive display within the Republican Party. I'm looking at James Lankford. I'm looking at Mitch McConnell. I'm looking at all of these, Lindsey Graham, the childless cat lady. Mm-hmm. I mean, Josh Hawley said it. He said, I'm a Christian nationalist. I mean, everybody knows that guy's the biggest wuss on the planet. Fist pumps the January 6th insurrectionists. But when they start charging towards the Capitol, he's running. That man has no spine. And just a little shout out to the January 6th committee who pointed that out and played that over and over. That was a great moment.
That was a great moment. Speaking of January 6th, so here we have Rachel Scott asking about his claims to pardon January 6th convicted felons.
When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely.
Sure.
You called them patriots. 140 police officers were assaulted that day. Their injuries included broken bones, at least one officer lost an eye, one had 2 cracked ribs, 2 smashed spinal discs, another had a stroke. Were the people who assaulted those 140 officers, including those I just mentioned, patriots who deserve pardons?
What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to the people that tried to bring
My question is on those rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to
would you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You would pardon those?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just
First of all, Republicans' default setting are always these false equivalencies that, well, and what he's saying, what happened in Portland, what he's looking at, what he's saying is, what about BLM? And this facts on the ground are this. The Republican Party cherry picks when they want to be moral. When they're in a predominantly white crowd, they want to say, back the blue, we support the blue. But we saw what his supporters did. We saw how they beat the shit out of cops, ran into the Capitol, took literal shits in the Capitol. Meanwhile, they say, we love America. We love Donald Trump because Donald Trump loves America so much. That was a total shit show, January 6th. And the fact that that didn't end him permanently tells you what a cancer his movement is. But further, it tells you how spineless and morally duplicitous the entire Republican Party at large is.
Well, the things that stood out to me most about this is leave it to a black woman to hand him his ass. Good for her. In my memory, in 8 years, I've never seen somebody hold his feet to the fire like that.
Well, no, Jake Tapper
tapped out. I mean, he tapped out.
It was ridiculous, but this should be the standard.
Absolutely.
Moving forward. And she deserves a profile in courage.
She does.
She stood up there and did her job. She was confident, but I love the optics of this is the appetizer for what's coming in the debate.
Should he show?
Yes. Black women are not to be trifled with.
No.
Do not mess with black women. And I want all black women in this country for you to know, not all white women and white men are pieces of shit like MAGA. We are outraged at this overt racism, and we value these black journalists that had to do a lot more to get where they are than Pumps and I had to do to walk in here and sit in these chairs. And we see that, and we feel that, and we stand with you. And there are millions of more white Americans that feel exactly the way we do, and we will not relent, and we will not let up. And everybody's got their foot on Donald Trump's neck right now, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep going. We are going to expose all this racism because enough is enough. It's not a place I want to live in. It's not a place I want my children to live in. And I can't imagine being a black mother trying to raise a child with these unhinged, psychotic racists and racist apologists all over this country. I mean, we will call it out starting today, like we did months ago, and we will keep going all the way through. We stand with marginalized people in this country.
Absolutely. And one thing that I appreciated about that audience there is they didn't sit there and take it. When she said, well, sir, they're convicted. They all busted out laughing because he too is a convicted felon.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have any authority to say, oh, well, their system was unfair. It's the jury system. There's evidence. There's grand juries. But you're a convicted felon. So you can't sit there and cherry pick who should go to jail and not. But in his mind, he's the arbiter of who's black, who's going to get a fair trial, who's not getting a fair trial, who's late,
who supports cops, who doesn't support cops. It is a made up bullshit psycho world that these people live in. And if you're a Trump supporter, you're either a racist or a racist apologist, which is the equivalent of being a racist. Full stop. We've seen it. I'm tired of making carve outs for people that say, oh, I just think he's so good with the economy. Bullshit. You like his racism. You like his breed of anger. Own it.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've failed to point out that I think is important is that he asked her what DEI meant because he didn't fucking know. He had no idea what those letters stood for.
Well, that is a Republican talking point where they act so mystified. What is DEI? What are these pronouns? That's what they just try to stir up all of this. Like, what does that mean? I'll tell you what DEI means. I'll tell you exactly what it means. It's for Republicans, it's the modern day N-word. That's what they throw out when somebody is a candidate of color. That's what they say, because they know it would be ending if they use the N-word. And that's why they do the DEI stuff. And that's why he goes, what does that mean? He knows exactly what it means.
You think he did?
It is intentional racism.
Okay.
It is intentional on their part. This is a narrative that the right wing feeds red meat to the base to say, oh, yeah, to minimize diversity. That was intentional racism on his part to do that to her.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it was just a clown car of stupidity. And I did hear a bunch of different views on the commentating about this, saying it was the biggest scene of incompetence, that his campaign allowed it, that it was complete incompetence, which we just did a hot take yesterday talking about Republican incompetence. So I can buy that. But then I heard other commentators say, but he had to change the news story because all it was rah-rah Kamala Harris. And now it's him. And in his mind, bad press and good press are not different. What's your take on that?
I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it today. It is trickle-down incompetence with these people. I think that he has the hubris, and he's surrounded by so many sycophants, that he genuinely believes that because he made sneakers and because he's a convicted felon, and prior to Biden dropping out, he had gained about 6 to 7 in polling percentage bump from 2020 among Black men. He hears anything like that and he's like, oh my God, the Black people love me. And I think it is hubris, ego, and breathtaking hypocrisy that landed him here. But I also think that there's got to be some people in the Trump campaign that have to be like covert ops that are sabotaging his campaign for the Democrats, because perhaps it's hard for my logical brain to grasp that this level of incompetence has ascended to this.
I agree. I've heard his campaign. They're really talented. I'm like, are they? I don't know. And then he says, here's the projection and the lying. This will just be my final point. So he comes out of that dumpster fire and he goes on his failing Truth Social and says, crushed it.
That's what I'm saying. You know,
crushed it.
It is trickle down incompetence with MAGA. I mean, from the top of the ticket all the way down to the guy with the horns leading the prayer thing on January 6th, taking a shit after he, leads everybody in a light tongue talking session in the Capitol after they ambushed it. It is incompetence from top to bottom. These people aren't good with the economy. They're clearly not good with race relations. They don't give a fuck about the environment. They could give 2 shits about guns. They could give 2 shits about women's rights. They really have mastered incompetence. It's a masterclass in incompetence. All right, stick with us for more hot takes.
It's so entertaining to have the pain so